Hello, everyone, and welcome to Looking Forward. And we have a great show for you today. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Jeffrey Abramowitz, and I am a producer of Looking Forward Philadelphia, and we're glad to be here. We have a great show for you today. We have a bunch of wonderful guests on, and we're going to get started in one quick minute. But before we do, I just want to catch up. There's been a lot happening. As many people know that are following the show, Looking Forward is a show that talks about criminal and social justice issues, and we talk about the hard things like men and women that are navigating our criminal justice systems and trying to start over again, trying to get a new life. And we're grateful that the three people that are on today are crucial in our journeys. And I say our journeys, as many people know that I'm also a returning citizen, someone that's done time in the federal system, come home, been able to navigate my way back. And I'm excited that we're going to be sharing some information with you today about reentry and about the tools and things that you need to know. One is about getting talent back to work, and about things like pardons and expungement that our first guest is our expert on. So without further ado, and I know he's got some time constraints, so I'll make sure we get plenty of time with him. I want to introduce you to the 34th Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. How are you, Lieutenant Governor? Good to see you.
I'm great. Anytime I get a chance to talk about second chances, I'm in a great mood. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm one of your hugest fans, and it's funny, but I was watching not very long ago, probably about a month ago, maybe. I was watching a Sunday morning show, and they spent about a good bit talking to you and telling your story and showing your home and your family and all the great things that you're doing. So I'm really excited to be here for you to be here with us today. As a lieutenant governor, one of your big responsibilities is pardons and overseeing the board of pardons and expungements. And I have to tell you, I got a feed about an hour ago. I sit on the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board, and I also sit on the Attorney General's Reentry Council. So I get a lot of people feeding me information every day. And I got this wonderful bit of news that came across that Governor Wolf yesterday signed 310 pardons. 69 of them were expedited reviews. I just have to say, first, thank you.
Sure. No, I'll never do anything finer as an elected official than help facilitate second chances. And in fact, tomorrow the board reconvenes for its first quarter meeting, and I'll be proudly presiding over another record-setting session too, where you have. There's been a 400% increase in the number of pardon applications since we took office. And that's really emblematic of our commitment to re-engineer and reimagine a second chance in Pennsylvania. And I just want to pitch this, apply for a pardon today if you've got, a charge in your past and it's holding you back. There's never going to be a better chance in order to get a really full, fair review of it. And I've waived all the fees and the expenses, so it doesn't even cost anything.
So I have to tell you, I'm good friends with Brandon Flood, and
I love it. Yeah.
So the fact that he's in the position that he's in, and just has been doing so much work, but a lot of.
Can I just say how proud I am of Brandon? Like, he was the only person I considered for this job when I took office, and it's like talk about the ideal candidate, someone who. Is the living embodiment of a second chance, and the great work that he's doing, creating a stronger path for people to get that second chance. What an outstanding human being. So.
He's been great. And you know what? Some of the things that he's implemented come from his own experiences and his frustrations going through the system. Because, we often say that those closest to the problem are often closest to the solution.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, he has just been fantastic, and we are going to have digitized this process. It should have already been completed, but of course the pandemic blew that up. But before I leave as Lieutenant Governor, we will have completely digitized the entire process for the first time in Pennsylvania's history.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So people need to understand the importance of filing. And I think in the past, it's been this frustration of the system that just gotten some of these applications just got stuck in this bureaucracy, and that's so changed.
Yeah, people who were frustrated in the past do so with good reason. It wasn't well organized. It wasn't a priority. It was a bureaucratic morass of paper chasing and everything. And we really stripped all that out. We waived all the fees. And I want to emphasize, you do not need an attorney. You, of course, have the right to if you want to. But someone who thinks, oh God, I don't have thousands of dollars to pay an attorney. You don't need that. You can do this all on your own. And have been committed to eliminating the backlog and expediting, really low level cases, especially regarding marijuana. In fact, now for the first time ever, recently over the last year, if you receive 5 or 4 votes in the merit review, assuming no other board member has questions, you don't even have to show up, because we studied the statistics that not 99, if not 100% of all those folks that got those 5 votes in the first review or 4, why have them come all the way to Harrisburg when, it's just going to be like, any questions? Nope. Thank you. And these are very straightforward.
So I have to be honest with you, over the past few years, I've been home 5 years from the Fed system. And over the past years, there's been a lot of legislation that has been passed up in Harrisburg to try and change things, to try and make things better, from bail reform to helping men and women that are coming home and reentry and pardons and expungements, the whole 9 yards. And I will tell you that there has to be some level of frustration for you out of in the seat that you're sitting, just because of the composition of our legislature in Harrisburg. Do you see any of that changing?
I hopefully do. I also would like to talk about, I worked with 2 great organizations, the Heinz Endowment out here in Pittsburgh and Pulse out there in Philadelphia. And for the first time ever, we commissioned a study of our second-degree murder convictions here in Pennsylvania. Like, second degree is you pay the ultimate penalty even though you didn't directly take a life. And there's close to 1,200 people that are going to be condemned to die in prison, but for an intervention. And I don't understand why anybody would want someone to die. I mean, in other words, you as a second-degree murder conviction will pay the same penalty as the Tree of Life shooter, who I think we could all agree should die in prison for what he did. And that's not justice. And my appeal to conservatives is like, let's get to justice. We all want justice, right? And often conservatives are also very, religious, and they have that background. Great. Well, mercy and forgiveness and redemption underpins every major world religion. And I fundamentally believe mercy must be a partner to justice. And that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, so Toby Oxholm from Pulse has been on our show a bunch of times. He's a friend of the show's and a personal friend, and I've worked with him over time. And I think the work that they're doing in trying to help people navigate has been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, this idea that we are not the sum totals of a decision or a bad, anything. It's just like the power of redemption, the power of forgiveness. Pennsylvania has the punishment part down. We spend billions every year to do that, but we spend a tiny fraction of that to put people back on the path of redemption. And Pulse, speaking of Pulse, what a great organization, they commissioned an economic impact study and showed that commutations deliver a $16 million a year annual boost to Pennsylvania's economy. So even if you don't care about the justice and the redemption, of course, which I fixated on, but look at the economic benefit of it. It just doesn't make any sense to why anyone would oppose this.
So I really appreciate all the work that you've been doing. And I have to tell you, one image of you sticks out in my head now every time I think of you. And it was standing up at the head of overseeing the legislature with your mask on, and just mayhem breaking out. And I can't imagine being in that position. And we certainly hope that that it never happens again.
I made it clear before that session, like I don't want this. Like I don't seek out fights, but I'm not afraid of one if that's what it comes down to. And when it comes to situations like that, you try to find common ground. Like, look, we can't like eliminate the other side. We have to work together. And there are just some common sense basic social justice, criminal justice reforms that we can continue to implement here in Pennsylvania that won't make anybody less safe, that will save Pennsylvania tens of millions of dollars a year, and it will bring people out of warehousing and back into their communities and families. And I don't understand why anybody would be opposed to that, truly.
Yeah, so I'd be remiss if we didn't talk at least a little bit about your next move. And I'm a friend of yours on social media, so I know. But why don't you let everybody know where you're headed to, where you're hopefully headed to next?
Let me say this, and I've never meant anything more sincerely than what I'm about to say. If I could spend the rest of my life facilitating second chances and continuing to direct this, I would. There is nothing more deeply fulfilling to me than to see like the Horton brothers and the Evans brothers and all these other folks come home that don't need to die in prison over a technicality or over it just doesn't make any sense. So, but my next step is when I'm done Lieutenant Governor, I'm running for the United States Senate here in Pennsylvania. And I want to take those same lessons, those same, convictions to the United States Senate and promote criminal justice reform and this idea of redemption and a second chance.
Well, we wish you good luck. If you, there's so much, first of all, the thing that impacts, when I think about, changing legislation nationally and also locally is the reality that in the federal system, it's a very small percentage of men and women that are incarcerated. Sure. And it's our state systems really that need to adjust, to adapt, to really come up with the changes in order to get people back to work. And yeah, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, I have one of the guests that's coming after you is Mr. Narvaez, Lou Narvaez, who's the District Director of Probation and Parole for Pennsylvania, and also Jeff Korzenik, who's an economist from Fifth Third Bank, going to be talking about getting talent back to work and getting people back in. But I do believe that, people, they need sometimes a second, third, fourth, fifth chance, but that a career is just one small piece of that puzzle. There's so much more. And when we talk about getting people into good career jobs, pardons, expungements, even our clean slate law, which you were so instrumental in getting moved forward.
Shout out to Jordan Harris and great. And no, like clean slate is a national model, and California, and we want to make people more marketable. We want to make sure that you're not strung, like hamstrung for your whole career based on some dumb criminal charge that could be 10, 15, 20 years old. It just doesn't make any sense. And like if you do the crime, you pay the fine, you did the time, whatever, that should be the end of it. It shouldn't be perpetual punishment, and that's really what a criminal conviction is for a lot of these folks. That really doesn't mean that, they're not Hannibal Lecter, they're not a danger to public safety. They just made a mistake and they deserve a second chance. And whether it's through the clean slate or whether it's through pardons, it's just good economic sense. Even if you're not moved by the morality and the redemption aspect of it, why not from an economic standpoint too?
Lieutenant Governor, if there was something that you wanted the public to know about you as they go and as your march goes forward and you begin your journey to the Senate, what would you want them to know? What one thing you think is most impactful when people that they may not know about you?
Well, that I will do nothing finer as an elected official than to have gotten Lee and Dennis Horton home. And that's it. Like I could have called it a career at that. There are so many fine men and women in our Pennsylvania prison systems that don't and shouldn't be there. And, I would have been fine if that would have been it. Been like, good, because, these men, these brothers in Philadelphia were in prison for 27 years and were going to die there. They were described as the best inmates in the entire Pennsylvania system. And they needed to get home. And they were the victims of this awful second degree murder. And their case, as a father, as a brother, like it was devastating. And, I just so fundamentally believe in a second chance and redemption like that. Like I I would be fine with just that as my obituary. Helped get Lee and Dennis Horton home.
There you go. So I will tell you that just one thing I hope you will remember is that, we can let people home from prison, but unless we prepare them for what they're about to face, then those challenges are going to be monumental sometimes. We really wish you well in your journey, and we're hoping that you come back on through the campaign to share things with us, and we're glad to get you back on again. I have to tell you also that we had a chance in that on the Sunday morning piece to see all the great work that your wife's doing as well, and that's pretty remarkable. You should be really proud of her. And
she's everyone's favorite, from our kids to the governor to the dog. Everyone loves her more. But thank you for having me on. Please invite me on often. I could talk about this all day. So thank you for your work and your advocacy, and it's a true pleasure to be on.
It's great to have you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you very much. John Fetterman with us today, and this is Looking Forward. We're going to be right back in a minute. We are back. This is Looking Forward. WPPM LP 106.5 FM, and my name is Jeffrey Abramowitz, and grateful to be here today. There's so many people in our country that are currently on probation and parole, and it's almost absurd because we have a system where technical violations flood our incarcerated population. And even in Philadelphia, as in around the country, about 2/3 of those people that are incarcerated are there on some kind of technical violation, and that's something that has to change. We have to start thinking about doing a better job of how we monitor and help the men and women that go through our system. And quite honestly, Lou Narvaez and the Pennsylvania Department of Probation and Parole has done a remarkable job at helping men and women as they begin to navigate those challenges and get back into their life and get back into employment and career opportunities. It's a challenge because, there's always been this idea that when you're a probation officer that, I got to be careful. They're out to get me, and everything I do, they're going to violate me, or I broke a rule and they're going to get me. And I think that it's all been a mindset, and Lou Narvaez has gone a long way in changing that up and really saying that's not what it's all about. It's about us trying to help you. And part of the job that probation and parole does is try to figure out how can we get you to that next step? How can we get you coming home? And we are, it's an amazing kind of thing when you think about it, the fact that men and women are, they come home and then they think they're out in prison, and sometimes in the probation and parole system, they are oftentimes more incarcerated than they were before because of a probation officer. So we'll hopefully get Lou back on, I hope, in a little bit. Maybe he's having some connection issues, but no problem. This is all, we're COVID smooth here, and we just try to do our thing. And so I know Jeff Korzenik's waiting in the wings. If we want to bring Jeff on, we could do that. There you go, Jeff. How are you?
Jeffrey, how are you? Great to see you.
It is great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. Jeff Korzenik is chief strategist for Fifth Third Bank in Chicago. And Jeff, he's also a friend, so I'm going to be full disclosure. But I recently had a chance to go down to his wonderful city, and I have to tell you, you live in a beautiful place. Thanks for hopping on today.
Yeah, I'm actually back in Chicago today, out of St. Petersburg. So I seem to live on airplanes even during COVID.
I bet it's so it's great. So people should know, and the first thing I think they're going to think is, why am I bringing a banker on? What's a banker got to do with reentry and criminal justice? But I think why don't you tell us a little about why you got what started you in this journey that you've been on the last few years about learning about reentry.
Sure, I'll start with the perspective to your specific concern that. I started this as a solution to our corporate customers' labor shortages that they were experiencing most of the last 10 years pre-pandemic, knowing, however, of all the good it does to the community. So serving our customers, serving our communities. I don't know a better role for a banker than that. Specifically, I got into it. I'm the bank's de facto economist, and you may remember about a decade ago, there were a lot of problems associated with the labor force in the U.S. economy, and we had this declining rate of labor force participation. Of those people who were of working age, we kept seeing fewer and fewer of them in the labor force. And that's a direct drag on growth. So I started looking much more closely at why were we losing people? And I came to the conclusion that, which is much more widely accepted now, but was pretty radical, then that we had 3 social ills present in that cycle that were present in a way that we had never seen before, at least in post-World War II U.S. economy. Number 1, long-term unemployment. Number 2, the opioid epidemic. And number 3, the incarceration recidivism cycle, and the way that the criminal justice system was often unintentionally taking people out of the labor force. And as I started to explore that more, I frankly, by accident, came across companies that had figured out a way and had intentionally started programs to bring people who've been marginalized from the labor force, typically because of a criminal record, and bring them back. And by trial and error, they figured out the right way to do it. And unbeknownst to them, all the companies that did this ended up coming up with the same model. And so I took it upon myself to start sharing this model with our customers. And the journey continues with the release of my book coming just next month.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. But I have to tell people the miraculous thing about this. So you and I have known each other for several years, but one of the first times that we met was on a visit to Philadelphia, that you actually, you spoke in front of a room full of economists from around the world. And I was like so taken back, my jaw dropped down when you said, the secret sauce is, looking at the untapped labor market of returning citizens. And I just so what was it that got you started? Like, was it merely economics, or was there something more to it than that?
I think I was primed for this. Every family has someone in their ancestry who did the heavy lifting. Mine was my dad. He's the son of immigrants. My mom's an immigrant. My dad was first in family to go to college, and he was able to, by signing up at age 17 in World War II, he was able to get the GI Bill that covered 4 years, so he doubled up on his classes, and in 4 years got undergraduate degree from Harvard and a Harvard law degree. So he was an amazing person. He died in 2003, and though he was obviously successful, he never lost touch with his roots. And he would go back to his old neighborhood, which was a very poor neighborhood, ostensibly to run errands, really just to visit with folks. And sometimes as a kid, 10 or 12 years old, I'd go with him. And one such encounter stuck with me. We went to talk to a friend of his who ran what I think of as a junk shop, and they had a nice conversation, introduced me, his son, we all chatted, we walked away, and my father mentioned very casually, by the way, he spent time in prison. And I of course, was curious. I said, for what? And my father said, for murder, a crime of passion. And then my dad said something that has always stuck with me. He said, he's done his time. And I think that kind of moral backdrop has stuck with me. And as I started to investigate this for economic reasons, I began to understand how just how unjust our justice system is. And other aspects later in life, my kids went to a very diverse public high school in Chicago. You see how kids from different backgrounds lack certain support networks that would help them recover from mistakes much more quickly than they actually did. And you just build up a lot of realization the more you look at this, particularly when you look at it with an economic lens and that kind of data and analytical lens. You realize just what a bad system we have and how unfair it is to people, and what a huge economic cost it is to have this kind of system in place.
Yeah, it's incredible. I was in Las Vegas, spoke there right before COVID, and spoke to a banking convention, and they're financial analysts, and I really I couldn't believe afterwards when I got done talking how many people came up to me and said I was just an enter stroke away. And I said, I get it. And what they were referring to was how many times they had been faced with an issue where if they had hit that enter button, that they could have faced a prison sentence, and a harsh prison sentence, because our computer systems are all in our legal system tied together, and it's wire fraud, and wire fraud brings some rather harsh consequences in our federal system. So I think it's the one thing that I most impresses me about you, Jeff, is that you bring something to the table that a lot of people, I think, have missed. And that is that there's a true economic value to hiring talent that are returning citizens and people that have had justice involvement. And we're going to see it now more than ever, because what we're beginning to see in COVID is men and women that have are now unemployed because their companies are shut down or scaled back. And they may have done something when they were in high school. And it could have been something very benign or childlike, whatever it was, and now they're going to get rehired somewhere, and now they're facing that challenge that has evaded them for years because it's stuck on their record. And that's going to be a real challenge, and unless we step up and start opening the doors like you're doing, we're going to continue to face those challenges in our economy and getting people back to work. What's your spin on COVID, and how does reentry play into all of that?
I have to tell you, when COVID hit, and we had actually started talking about COVID as a potential economic threat back in January of last year. We had no idea that it was going to become a global pandemic and as disruptive. And the minute that became apparent, I called my publisher and I said, we got to delay the release of the book because there's no way anyone's going to be interested in this with the kind of unemployment we have. And I've been very pleasantly surprised, because in addition to COVID, of course, you had all the events of last summer that have continued. And there's this realization that COVID has brought to light, directly and indirectly, that we have a lot of inequities in our society and in our economy. And there is a stronger desire and a demand to do something about that. And you really can't make progress if you don't address second chance hiring. So that's point number one. It's just got to be part and parcel of our desire to have a more equitable society. Number two is a really interesting point. During the pandemic, I started reaching out to the second chance employers, the people who have had these great programs for hiring people with records, and asked them, will you continue? Now you have your choice of employee, are you going to continue? And the response was astounding. Every single employer I contacted said they're not going to do anything different, because the strengths of their second chance employees really came to light during the pandemic. Every employer that I talk to who does second chance hiring uses the same word to describe people with records who come back and have rebuilt their life, and that word is grit. And in a period where people were faced with how to navigate all these risks associated with the pandemic and going to work in the pandemic, that kind of grit really played a strong role, and in many cases, their ability to be resilient and dedicated employees was quite evident during COVID. So I think ultimately, and frankly to my surprise, the interest in this may actually be higher.
Yeah, it's kind of, there was a great article in Forbes not long ago that was able to quantify our loss of gross national product because of low education and people going through our justice systems and having barriers to reentry. One of the players that you and I both are familiar, we've done some work with, is SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. Can you tell me a little about your work with SHRM and I know I shared recently some of the work that they've been doing, but I'll lay it out for you.
Sure. SHRM has been a tremendous friend and ally in this. I think I was possibly their first speaker at one of their conferences a couple years back on second chance hiring. I spoke at their diversity conference in Atlanta a few years back. The way I got my foot in the door is one of their senior leaders of their foundation, which runs that, used to commute to high school with me. So you never know, and I'll knock on any door to advance this mission. But SHRM has embraced this in a tremendous way, and they've recognized that very often the gatekeeper to second chance hiring, fair chance hiring, lies in the HR department. And I have to give Johnny Taylor, the CEO of SHRM, and their whole team a lot of credit for taking a stand. I know from from conversations. It was not always not always popular with their membership, but they've really pushed the HR profession forward in this regard, both through their conferences, education, creating the SHRM toolkit, the Getting Talent Back to Work toolkit online, and then most recently, as you know, with getting a certification program and offering that certification program for free, by the way, also. So it's not just for their members. People can, who are not members, at least for now, can get that. And they've really taken a very public stand on this. It's a huge organization, and it's a critical component of changing the way that we attract, retain, and develop talent.
Yeah, just so you know, I mean, for people that are out there, SHRM is Society for Human Resource Management. And this organization, these are the people that are certified to do the hiring for all the companies across the country. And that's, they're really, to have them on our team is so impactful. But they do have a SHRM Getting Talent Back to Work certification program. I took it, and it took me a few hours to sit down and do it. It's been kind of was easy, but I learned a lot just by doing it, and I thought I knew a lot. But there's still so much more that we have to talk about. So we're gonna take a break in a minute, but before we do, Jeff, before we let you go, I know you got a new book coming out, and really excited about it. Just give it to us. When's it going to be released, and what's the title?
Sure. It's going to be released April 13th, and I do have an advanced reader's copy we have been showing to reviewers and sending out. So it is real. My publisher is HarperCollins Leadership. You can just look it up under my name. I'm the only Jeff Korzenik on the planet. The title is Untapped Talent: How Second Chance Hiring Works for Your Business and the Community. I also have a website with a lot of information and links on how to buy it. jeffkorzenik.com. If you go to jeffkorzenik.com/books, you'll go directly to that. And I will share with your viewers and listeners that pre-orders are greatly appreciated because they send a very important signal to publishers, to booksellers, and to reviewers that this is a topic of importance. It is available for pre-order now, and available in audio version, as well as an ebook version, as well as the paperback.
We will definitely get it out. We're going to post it up, and we'll post it on our website, and we'll get it out to our networks to make sure people know that it's something that's going to be a must read for employers, for people that are working in the space, that are returning citizens, for everyone across the board. It's going to be a very wide audience, and we're really looking forward to it. One last quick story before we let you go, and appreciate you being on, was that we have a mutual friend in Brandon Cheskoski, who is Edwin's in Cleveland. And I had the chance, and I told you that you had told me once you had been out there, and I had a chance to be in Cleveland last year before COVID, and gone to Edwin's restaurant, which is a remarkable restaurant. And we had this fantastic dinner. And I have to say that I didn't get what you had told me to get, and Lisa did. And she had a great meal. But the one thing that I use now over, and I have a picture of it in my office, was we had gotten bananas Foster for dessert. And a young man came out, and he was pushing a cart, and he was wearing a chef's suit, and he came right in front of us, and he made this bananas Foster. If you haven't ever seen it made before, there's a big flame that goes up in the air, and this gentleman had been a returning citizen and been under Edwin's or Brandon's wing for a while. And I have to tell you that the dessert was amazing, but the smile and the face of this gentleman as he made this dessert was priceless, just priceless. And he's got a career pathway that changed his life. There's tremendous talent out there, and I want to personally thank you for everything you're doing in getting helping men and women that need second, third, fourth chances, but need an opportunity to get back into a career, back on their feet, including myself. And you've been a good friend, and I appreciate you, and good luck with your book.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Jeff Korzenik. So you're listening to Looking Forward Philadelphia. Jeff Korzenik, we wish you well. Get out there and make sure you pre-order his book. We're going to put it on our website to make sure it's the Untapped Talent: How Second Chance Hiring Works for Your Business and the Community. The link for his book, he's been a great friend, is www.jeffkorzenik. It's KORZENIK.com/books. Jeff Korzenik. And then you're listening to Looking Forward Philadelphia, WPPM 106.5. We're going to be right back in a minute. We are back. We are here looking forward. WPPM LP. I am Jeff Abramowitz, and I'm grateful to be here today. One of the challenges that we have often in COVID is with like everybody else getting technology and working through some technology issues and getting the voice on. We'll give him another shot and see if he can get on there or not. He looks pretty good though. We got the visual. It's just the audio, I think, is the issue. But breaking down those barriers and having people around when we talk about probation and parole has been it's been a big deal for us looking forward, because what we're finding is that as our audience grows and as we start getting more and more people tuning in, what we're finding is that people are appreciating the fact that we're really breaking down those silos, that we're talking about the issues that people really want to know. Like, what do probation officers do during COVID-19 today? How do they handle things a little bit differently? Or do they at all? And that's really an important thing. I will mention there's a bunch of things coming up while I got a second, is that there's a bunch of opportunities for men and women that are coming home from incarceration or that have been home for a while. The first is Looking Forward Philadelphia. It's run by Jev's Human Services. It's a reentry program, and they are amazing. It's really a holistic reentry program that deals with everything from helping people get back to work to finishing up your resume to doing things like navigating pardons and expungements. Matter of fact, the Lieutenant Governor mentioned Pulse, Philadelphia Lawyers for Social Equity, and they are actually one of our partners in the project, and they do pardon and expungement clinics. And all you really need to do is, if you go on to Looking Forward Philadelphia, you can call or go on to lookingforward@jevs.org. And if you email there, they'll send you a link, or you could just log on to our Zoom platform at any time. But you can Google Looking Forward Philadelphia and it'll pop up. And we have orientations and yoga programs, work ethics, resume building, and job interviewing, as well as career placement. So the other things that are coming up, there's Maternity Care Coalition has a mobile, mom mobile healthy start program. It's a fatherhood initiative and virtual workshop, and that's going to take place on weekdays. It's March 3rd through April 21st from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And it's a curriculum for dads. It's a dad's curriculum. It's an 8-week course. A certificate of completion is going to be provided, and they talk about things like what's it mean to be a man and the father's role and discipline, child getting involved, and really how to be a better dad. And that's all kind of neat stuff. And that's by Maternity Care Coalition, and it's called Mom Mobile Healthy Start Program. It's a fatherhood initiative. So I hope you'll check in with that. There's also Phil Abundance, which has been doing some remarkable things during COVID. Phil Abundance has really reached out and is doing a virtual open house for their culinary arts program. So if you're a returning citizen and you want to get into the food industry, now might not be such a bad time, to be honest, because what's happening now is that the restaurants are going to start opening up and they're going to be looking for some talent. So I would say that you should think about it. The way to get hold of Phil Abundance is it's Jay Starling at philabundance.org. And Jason Starling is the person who will, Jason Starling is, he's the coordinator there at Phil Abundance. So check it out. I know they run open houses all the time, and I'm pretty sure that their classes are going through COVID. So it's a live class inside. Last one I want to tell you about is Inmates to Entrepreneurs. Now, this is an 8-week course that's coming up. It's Tuesday nights from 6 to 7:30. It's done via Zoom. And again, we'll post this on our website, and I'll post it as well. But this program really walks through how to start a business, how to get on your feet despite having a background, how you get on your feet to get a company started with low cost, low capital, and to really make it happen, to make it a real thing. So I hope you'll check it out. And those are just some happenings that are coming up. I wanted to talk a little bit about Jeff Korzenik for a second, and also the the reality is that Jeff he does this across the country. Jeff has been on MSNBC. He speaks around the country often, and his passion now has been trying to convince people, and there is some convincing to do, especially larger employers, of the reality that people deserve another chance. They deserve a chance to get back on their feet, and that there's a talent there, that people bring value to employers, and convincing employers of that, and it starts really at the top. And what better person to hear it from than somebody that is in your that is your banker, that's your financial the financial strategist for one of the largest banks in the country is getting on and saying, look, we need to start thinking about hiring returning citizens. We need to think about getting them back into the game, because there's a value there for an employer. And by doing that, we'll be able to get more people back to work. And as I always said, I don't think it's just about the work part of it. I also think it's about the retention piece, is that these are, that it's the retention piece is not only just getting the job, but it's keeping the job. Like, how do you stay with it? How do you stay on the job in order to be successful? Because we know that entry-level positions are only good for so long, and there needs to be a chance for people to advance, to move forward, to go into different opportunities and different careers. So it's important that employers open that door up. And a lot of times it's just ignorance. It's just not knowing, really what's involved. What do I need to know? What do I have to do? Do I worry about a parole officer coming in? Do I have to worry about, somebody, stealing from me, and all those issues that run through your head just because they don't know. They don't know what's involved, and they don't know how to really handle working with returning citizens and people with a background. And what's interesting, quite honestly, is that SHRM has a handle on it. They've done a lot of work trying to prepare employers and people that do the hiring and firing what they should know when they work in the reentry space. And it is different. It's different because it's not so much about the process of getting the job. It's different because there's a realization that when you work and you come home from prison, that there are all these other challenges that exist out there. I'll give you an example. When I came home, I got a job for minimum wage working, teaching GED math in North Philadelphia. And I taught GED math, and I learned a lot in the process. I kind of was a sponge. I needed to learn how to teach and educate and all the things that go into that. But on the outside of that, I was living in a shelter in a halfway house. I was struggling with food because the food wasn't very good, and it was very difficult for me to find a good meal. I didn't have transportation, so I often had to walk wherever I wanted to go, and didn't have a lot of money because I came home with only about $23 in my pocket or on a debit card. So the challenges of working when you come home from prison are one thing, but the challenges of life are very different. And I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to navigate all of that. But I was a lawyer for a long time. I was able to figure it out, and I'm proud that I did that. But I always think back to all the men that I worked with and lived with that were struggling, that didn't have the skill set that I had, that was able to tell their story, that was able to convince people that they needed another opportunity, another chance. Those are the people that I worry about. And, some of the things we haven't talked about today is that COVID's had a dramatic impact on reentry and returning citizens. And one of the things we have to be mindful of is how we can support people that are coming home. It is impossible for us to really help people unless we understand what they're trying to navigate, what the challenges are that they're facing post in this COVID world. And it can be little things like just having a face mask when you come home, hand sanitizer, having a care package, having access to a computer or a cell phone, all those checklists of things that you need when you come home. But COVID poses a lot of difficulties for people, especially with a workforce that there's so many people unemployed and underemployed, that there's going to be over the next year a lot of competition getting back to work and a lot of people looking and searching for jobs. And the returning citizens are going to have a hard time competing against people that maybe don't have a criminal record unless employers take a different view. And that view's got to be, what's the value that they bring to the table? The point is that, there's so many of these barriers that people have coming home now, that one of the things we are starting to see is we're starting to see more and more men and women coming home having addiction issues and going back to the point where they are, they're going back into a bad place, going back to drugs, going back to some of their old habits. And over the past few weeks, we've had a number of people that have gone back and have committed suicide or overdosed. And that is, it's really hard for me to digest, because I can't help but think that we need to do more. And how can we do it? How can we touch them? How can we get them? And unfortunately, because so many places are shut down or closed or not servicing, or servicing in a satellite way, that personal touch has been lost. And I really think that it plays an important role in helping people deal with some of those addiction challenges that they have, but more importantly, connecting with people and just saying, how can I help you? What can I do? How can we help you navigate the challenges that you face? And it could be, small things. I know that over the past few weeks, we've been giving out a lot of coats and jackets and essentials like razors and shaving cream and things like that. So the challenges are large, but there are people out there doing really good work. I was over a friend's a few weeks ago and dropped some stuff off to Jean-Dai Harel from Jean-Dai is from TCRC, the Center for Returning Citizens, and they're right at near Broad in Erie in Philadelphia. And Jean-Dai every Friday has lines outside of his small little place giving out tons and tons and tons of food, and I'm talking good food that provides support for people for a full week. Incredible work that they're doing. There's so many of our other friends and colleagues that are out there that are just doing good stuff. They're helping people down in where they need it in those really challenging areas. So the last thing I want to leave you with, and we're almost out of time, is I want to talk a little bit about COVID and getting the vaccine. So I will tell you that I think it's probably the most important thing that you can do currently is try and get an appointment. Make sure that when a vaccine comes your way and you have an opportunity, you grab it. You grab it, because not only is it going to be for yourself, it's going to be for your family and your friends and people in your community. And I think it's vitally important that that everyone get vaccinated, no matter what vaccine it is, no matter what opportunity you have. Go and grab it, take that vaccine, and make sure that you are that you're vaccinated up, so that you're healthy and that the people that you are around. And that's how the country is going to heal. It's going to heal one shot at a time, and that's okay. But we all need to do our part. So I would encourage everybody to go out and make sure that you really do your thing and get vaccinated. COVID has wreaked havoc. I know that last week we hit a small milestone of 500,000 individuals that have died from COVID-19. And the statistics inside of prisons and inside of our incarceration systems are not much different. Men and women are dying at alarming rates. And in large part, it's because in large parts because we just don't do enough to protect ourselves. Washing your hands, wearing face masks, just simple things that are just common sense. In prison, it's hard. There's no social distancing in prison. It's very difficult. You're living very close quarters. And those challenges, I would also tell you that you have to be mindful of what's going on inside of our prisons from a mental health standpoint. I know, being inside of a cell for a period of time, that you can really go crazy just by looking at the walls. And we need to make sure that our prisons start opening the door up to programming and getting people resources like educational tools and iPads and things that will help them get smarter while they're away, because those are the things that will make a difference when they come home. Simple things like digital literacy, or getting your high school diploma while you're away, or just taking a class or two. We know the Pell Grant window has been opening up and has opened up a little bit, but that doesn't go into effect for another year and a half or 2 years. We have to do things now. And doing things now means really providing resources to the men and women that are incarcerated to get better. I was in a discussion recently with someone who said, Mr. A, tell me something. At what age or how long is it before you get out that we should start educating people? And I said, I firmly believe that everyone inside of a prison should receive education, or the opportunity for education. And I said, what do you mean? You got people doing a long time, 20, 30 years in there. And what they fail to recognize is that it's the OGs, the old timers, the people that have been down for a while. Those are the people that often have the very most impact on the young people in the system. And I was at SCI Phoenix last year and met with the Man Up organization. It's a bunch of program inside of the prison. And one of the guest speakers that day, who was also an inmate, was Bill Cosby. And Bill Cosby got up and tried to, he had a few small jokes, but the reality was most of it was tough stuff. And it was talking and addressing to the young people in the audience and letting them know that this is not a good place. This is a place you need to stay out of, that if you want to have a successful life and you want to be happy, that it's not going to be behind these walls and behind these bars. So it is the old timers and the people that have been down for a bit that are often the most impactful in the system. And those people, if we educate them and make them smarter, then vicariously what we're doing is we're spreading it. We're spreading it to the young people as well when they see them in the classroom, trying to get themselves smarter and trying to better themselves. So I believe everybody should get an education when they're in the prison system, and when they come home, it should be accessible as well. So we've had a rocky show, but we've had a good show. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman was here, and we wish him well and thank him so much for being on. Jeff Korzenik was on from Fifth Third Bank. Jeff has a new book coming out. We hope that you'll go and do a pre-order for that, and I'll post it on my website so that people can do the pre-order through that. But Jeff is a good friend, and he's really out there pushing hiring and getting returning citizens back to work. So thank you, Jeff, for that. Lou Narvaez, again, we're going to get you on one of these days, and we appreciate you so much, Lou. We know you're doing a great job for the Pennsylvania Department of Probation and Parole, and we appreciate you coming on for the show. So we are looking forward. We'll be back in a few weeks, and we look forward to catching up with everybody. So this is WPPM LP 106.5, and you've been listening to the Looking Forward Radio Show.
They say, don't you worry about a thing, 'cause everything's gonna be alright. And darling, sweep those tears to the side. This is part of your life. You've got nothing to hide. I was trying to be a ray of sunshine, but sometimes it's okay to slide. Sometimes, but I bounce back with a smile. I'm gonna rise someday. I'm gonna rise. to get caught up in sorrow, but there's no need to wait until tomorrow. The world goes around for a reason, for finding strength in those worn down places. And so you know, confident ain't always mean untouchable.
Crowds of people line the streets, fists raised in solidarity. Amid the chaos, rage and lies, hope ignites here in prosperity. While all is uncertain, the one thing we know is we won't go unnoticed this time. So sing it loud and sing it free. Rise for the ones who can't speak. 'Cause I am you and you are me, and we are the reckoning. We've marched for equal rights and for our lives, and now we fight for justice. Homemade signs of different colors, shapes and sizes unite us. When the system is broken, the one thing we know is we will not be silenced this time. So sing it loud and sing it free. Rise for the ones who can't speak. 'Cause I am you and you are me, and we are the reckoning. So take my hand and let's show up. Rise for the people we love. Tears in our eyes, but our hearts beat free. 'Cause we are the reckoning. As life after life is lost, when will enough be enough? The courage is flowing inside our blood. So rise up, rise up, rise up.
So sing it loud and sing it free. Rise for the ones who can't speak.